So, hi everybody. Erin, thank you so much for allowing us to speak to you today and to be on your podcast. We're really grateful. We are two out of four members of an organization that we started, Hijas del Campo. And essentially, that name came because we are all daughters of immigrants who started their American journey on the fields. And so we know the importance of being daughters of the field, seeing the work that's happening. And so with the pandemic and then the fires, we wanted to help, and which is how we ended up meeting. And we created this organization to offer that support. So it was really interesting how Dorina and I actually met, and then Maria. Do you want to talk about that, Dori?
Yes, so we all met via social media, and we planned out a date to go out and bring the campesinos, the farm workers, just water and snacks. They were working during the fires and the heavy smoke, and so we wanted to come out. So the very first time we met was the very first time we went out to help the campesinos. We had never met prior to that. So it organically happened where we just came together, and from there it just evolved into what we are now.
So how long ago did this start? When did you meet? Was it during the fire time or?
Mm-hmm. That's right, in the middle of it. So August time frame. So we've only known and been doing this for about 4 to 5 months now.
So this is something new, 4 to 5 months, and you say you have 4 people that are the founders or people that are in charge of creating this.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So for you two, what was the significance and the importance of doing this? I know that you say you're children of farmers and you grew up in that setting, but coming together, finding people online, that's hard, right? You're finding people with the same, same interests, and that might not be the hard part actually, but getting together and actually, doing a plan and seeing it come to fruition. That's the hardest part. Organizing and doing everything. Following your social media, I see how much you're organizing and you're getting the community together to help with the donations, and then you're executing that plan and you're going out there, and I'm seeing all of that, and it's great and it's wonderful.
Thank you. It's a labor of love. We put a lot of time, a lot of hours, a lot of energy. We are constantly working. We also have jobs, like we have work, and we have children doing distance learning from home. So we are busy, but our heart's in it. And it was one of those things that once we went out there, what we initially intended to do was bring people water and snacks while they're working. But once we got talking to them, we realized that there's such a bigger need, that these people need so much more support. And it was one of those things like you just can't you can't turn the other way now. You can't turn a blind eye. Like, we're in it. And so, we meet, we talk all day long, we text all day long, and we have a million ideas. And we've been very fortunate that we've had such an outpour of support from the community. And that's really what's helped us keep this going, is that there's so many people who want to help and who have been so generous and who have had such a loving heart and who have just continued to support us and donate. And it keeps us going. That's how we've been able to reach so many people.
So what was that moment that clicked for you that was like, all right, we actually have to do more? Because you talked about, the need for it to be more. What was that moment for both of you that actually like clicked? Like, oh, actually, there is a greter need. We need to do more. We have to do more.
The very first time. The very first time we went out there. I'm sorry, Maribel.
No, it's okay.
Sorry, we always talk over each other. The very first time we went out there, we met out there. We went to a few farms, and then we kind of pulled off to the side of the road after, and we talked about like what we saw, and we were just taken back by the fact that these people were working in these terrible conditions without any masks, without water stations. And the very first time we went out there, we realized that there was such a need. These people were not being given what they need to work to protect themselves.
Right.
So for us, it was the very first time we went out there. That's when we realized that we needed to do more.
Yeah.
So we said after that meeting, we're like, we need to come back and bring them masks, you know,
Yeah.
proper masks.
And then and then from there we ended up doing a sort of a pop-up, right? And in that pop-up, you know, we had a meeting right before that where we were like, what are the questions, like what are the questions that we need answered, right? How do we get to know our gente to understand what are the things that they need? And so from there we created a survey, and that survey has helped us tremendously. It's really helped us get to know who they are on a different level, to understand what their needs are, right? What are the things that they need help with, right? Obviously, PPE is a huge thing, right? We're in a pandemic. Our community is really hit the hardest, you know, the Latino and the Black community are hit so greatly. And so we want to be able to help them with that, with the PPE. And try to allow for education for that. Then we were noticing on the surveys, it's food, right? Access to food, because, you know, either hours are being shortened because of COVID, or people who have been affected by COVID, who have been, you know, compromised by it, they can't work the way they were working before. So obviously, like, that's income, right? That's income that they're not getting. That this during that time of August and September, that's like their go time when they're really working a lot. So because then after that, as you know, Aaron, is the temporada where they're not really working, right? So that's the time during the summer, they're collecting their money, they're working those hours, and then they have to save a little bit of that for the winter season. And so, you know, that's kind of like through that survey, we were able to figure all of these things out, and calling them has been a huge thing.
And that's right. You know, they work all summer and they have to save that money to stretch it out. And they're not only doing it for themselves, they have families, they have, you know, they have their wives, their children, a life to live.
Right. And another thing that makes this time unique is that a lot of them have children, and their children are doing distance learning at home. So they're home all day using electricity to log on to their computers. Now they need internet, you know, and their kids, so they're home, they want to eat all day, you know,
all day.
That's another, you know, another issue for them, another burden that these people are facing, where in a normal situation, their children would be at school all day, out of the house. You know, they're not using electricity, they're not using Wi-Fi, they're not eating all day. And so this is like another unique, a unique issue that they're facing during this time, during this pandemic.
And another thing, like you said, they're doing distance learning, so they're at home. And I understand most of the time, both parents are working, especially in the field. So what do they do when they're both having to work and to be at home to learn? Do you ever come across that when you're out there?
We have heard of kids being at home. It's like, no estamos en la casa, you know, like when we're going out to do a despensa and we're talking to them, and we call them, we're like, hey, we're going to come out. And they're like, well, we're not home, but the kids are home. You know, you can knock on the door, they'll open it, and you can give it to them, right? So do you imagine like being out at work and then your kids being at home? It's like this extra worry that you have, because they're like different ages, right?
Right. And not only that, but the children that are home are not getting the assistance that they need, you know.
Right.
So there's times where my kids have issues logging on to Zoom, or they don't understand, or they can't hear the teacher. And like, I'm having to constantly step in and help them. And so these kids who are being left alone, they don't have that assistance. So they're not, I mean, I don't know how much any of our kids are learning during this time, but they're not even, you know, they're, again, like underserved in that area also. They don't have the privileges that a lot of children have.
So the resources that are out there right now are few and far between, and they're very limited. And a lot of these individuals are undocumented, so they don't get the federal help as far as other people get. They don't get those benefits. That safety is not there for them. And so being in this position, they need basic needs. So what are those needs that people don't realize or take for granted that the organization that you work with now, or that you founded, are providing for these individuals?
Food. Food is like the number one thing, right? We have been calling and asking, what is it that you need support with? And they will say it time and time again is the food that you guys are supplying to us, or giving to us, is, please don't stop. Please keep helping us with this, because it's gone a long way. Even for Thanksgiving, when we brought out turkeys, I think one of the families said, we made a mole with it and it lasted us for a long time, right? So like, they're having to be creative on how to make it stretch as well. But that's why we try. That's why we don't rest either, right? Because we're really trying to make sure that they don't have to have that worry. Like, even if it's frijolitos, that we can get on their table, right? But that's like the number one thing.
We've also had people say, because of you bringing us groceries, we've been able to keep our lights on. We were able to use that money that we were going to spend on groceries to pay our electricity bill, and so when you're in a position, like, what do? Do you put food on the table, or do you leave them? Right? And it's like, if we're able to help in one of those areas and like give people that that they will have groceries for this week, and we will be back again next week, that is like a huge blessing for so many that we take for granted.
Right.
My children don't know what it's like to open the fridge and there not be food, but unfortunately there's a lot of children that have that.
Yeah.
And I was one of those kids that grew up on welfare, grew up on food stamps, government aid, and without that, we probably would have had more nights of hunger. It's not like we had the best things, everything we had was store brands, and my mom made it work. She always made it work somehow. But without that safety net, I can imagine how life would have been, different, where you don't have that access to it.
Right.
And for some kids, maybe school is the only opportunity they can have those meals provided 100%. For them. So then that's another struggle for the parents when they're out there and their kids have to be at home. That's extra meals, that's extra money that they had to allocate to that. And that's resources that they probably don't have at this time being. And that's where it's where you step in and you're able to provide for them in a way that other people are not able to.
Yeah.
So that's
absolutely.
It's really great.
I grew up like that too, Dorina, and it was, waiting in that welfare line and waiting in that line and understanding what that's like, right? Or going to the store and just like my mom counting, like, where they used to have like the paper, like the checkbook, and it was like 5, 10, 20. And, she's having to check everything and make sure that she has enough. It's tough, and some of these families don't just have like 1 or 2 kids, right? Like they have 5 kids sometimes that you have to feed and you have to figure out how, right?
I personally, like, my family was never on welfare. Like, we were very fortunate in that area. Both of my parents always worked. They worked 2 jobs, each of them, to provide for us. I have 5 siblings, so we were a big family. But I remember as a kid being a recipient of like a box of food, and like just what a blessing that was to have like extra food, like where we weren't limited, even if it was for a few days, so I've been on that side. We know what it's like, and it's stuff that we don't take for granted now. And that there's people in our backyard who are hungry and who are in need. It's just something that we can't turn our eye from anymore. Like, we can't just turn, we have to help. And we feel like it's an obligation for us at this point to continue to help.
So what was the first site that you went to? What was the first site that you just gave out water and basic needs like that, and the mask?
Yeah, that was, we focus here in Brentwood, Oakley, Brentwood, Knightson. So this is like our focus, because we noticed that like, we've met some amazing people who are doing work out like in Watsonville and Salinas, and, there's some help out in the Central Valley as well. But we were noticing that out here, when we did our research, there wasn't an organization or anybody that was helping, which is why we ended up starting, right? And so, yeah, we went out to the farms out this way, and just being out there, like the smoke was bad. It was bad, and they were out there, and it's intense work, right? So you're out of breath, and imagine with the smoke on top of that, like you're ingesting all of this, and you're out there working, and it's a hard job. Es un trabajo bien difícil. Like you just can't, and then you're inhaling it. So it's just, yeah.
And another important to highlight was that all of us are working from home, right? The majority of the country is working from home. Like we have that ability to work from home. These people do not. They have to be out there in these terrible, horrible conditions, in the heat, in the fires, in the smoke, in the rain, in the cold. We have people that are working right now, and they start work at 3, 4 in the morning, and it's like 39 outside.
Yeah. Like that one time we went out. So we went out to a farm one morning, and they said, and it was like starting to get cold out, right? And it was towards the end of the season, and they were like, it was freezing out here. Like they couldn't start right away because they tried, and their hands like it was just way too cold. Like they couldn't do it right away.
So they said it was so cold they couldn't even. They were picking string beans, and they said it took us a good hour or so to warm up our hands.
Yeah.
We would have, start picking. So now their day was just prolonged even longer because it took them longer to start. And we have people who wake up at 12, 1 in the morning, make lunch for their husband, for themselves, leave food for their kids who they're leaving home alone, and then drive an hour to get to part of town, to start work at 3, 4 in the morning. And then they work 12-hour days, 7 days a week.
And I'm very familiar.
Don't have food on the table, right? Then they still it's just so unfair.
Yes, and I'm very familiar with that type of work schedule. My grandfather that raised me, he's still farming, and he's in his 70s. I think he's 76 years old. Sunrise to sunset, still going strong. Doesn't want to give it up. So I know that work ethic and how difficult it is being a farmer. I didn't go into is because my grandfather pushed me to go get an education because he understood at the time that it's something that it's a very hard on a person's body and mind, and he loves what he does, but he never wanted any of his children or grandchildren to ever go into that, and he strongly persuaded everyone to go get an education. And none of my family got into farming, and he's the only one. So sadly, it's probably going to end with him, and maybe one of my younger generation siblings or cousins are going to pick it up one day. But it just shows how strong it takes for a person to go in there day in, day out, grueling, where they're having, pains all over their body. I remember my grandfather's had probably 4 or 5 surgeries, major surgeries due to farming related accidents and just from the wear and tear on his body. He's been through a lot, but he gets up every single day and he goes out and he does it. And it never stops for him, never ending. My other grandfather from my father from side, he immigrated from Mexico to work the fields out in the Central Valley. And that's how my father ended up in California. And that's how, I'm here today, is because my grandfather that was a farmer immigrated here. So I have a very, I'm very passionate about the farming because I relate to it so much because it's part of my family history. And
it's part of who you are, right?
And so
that's you. That's the making of you.
Yes,
and it's important never to forget that.
Right, and that's the important thing. And it's so important, Erin. I'm glad you shared that because it's also important to highlight that a lot of the majority of the campesinos who have, adult age children are in college, and they are pursuing a higher education. We've talked to so many families, and they're so proud, that their son is in college or their hija isn't, going to the university. Their goals and their sacrifices are not going in vain. You and all of us are a product of that. Their hard work, their back-breaking work is not going in vain. We are not taking it for granted. Their children are not taking it for granted.
Exactly.
So I think that's so important to highlight.
Yeah, and we make this country better. And that's what
Amen.
people don't realize is
Yeah.
that immigrant farmers, people that are farming, they make this country better because
Yeah.
not only do they provide and they do a service that helps feed a lot of people in this country, their children go on and they go to college and they get careers as well. And
they make a difference.
Yes.
Very much so. And I see the difference that you're making by helping these individuals that don't, and being able to provide basic needs for them is something that in the Bay Area, there should have been organizations. We're one of the richest areas in California and probably in the United States. And that an organization here to help them.
Yeah, the economy in the Bay pretty much like is what carries. Like if you look at like different states throughout like the Midwest and everything, it's like I think even like either we're equal to that or like we somehow surpass it, like just like what's going on here, right? So it's insane. It's insane.
And we still leave individuals like that are vulnerable behind. And where do they go for help?
Right.
And how do we not just push them out, right? Like, how do we actually look at the problem and then address it and help, right? And not just, a huge thing that we're looking at right now is like, there's a farm that actually wants to sell and they want to sell and create homes there. And that's actually a farm that we work with and we help. I think it's about, there's about 700 something like not families, but people all together that are sustained by that work that happens there, right? So if you start moving and building over all of this, where's the work? Where's the viability of a work future for them if this is all they know too, right? They've given their life to this farm. And so I think that's something that Dorina and the team that we've been talking about that we really need to address because, we're helping them, but this is also an issue, right? That they need help with because then they're not going to have any work. Then they're going to find themselves displaced, right? And it's gentrification and displacement. And again, people not thinking about them and thinking about themselves and the food that they have on their table comes from farms like this, right? If you let that happen all throughout the Bay, it's just going to keep spreading. And that's like a social issue that I'm super passionate about. Dorina's super passionate about, I want them to have their jobs. I want them to have these things. So, yeah.
Right. Because
I appreciate it.
People are not given options, right? If we're going to help you find another job or here, we're going to help you with unemployment. Like these are resources that are not available to them. It's just like, we're moving on, it is a social issue. Like it's just, there's like a ton of layers to it.
So growing up, my grandma and grandpa told me stories about when they first came here. My grandma was born in California in Modesto. My grandfather was born in Brownsville, Texas. His family immigrated out here because they were farmers too, but they followed wherever the seasons were at, right? So my grandma's family did the same thing too. They immigrated from Mexico, and her father was a contractor or a farmer one of the head ones back then, because he spoke English and Spanish, so he got a higher position. But they followed where they were growing crops at. So they went all over California. They went to Salinas, Watsonville. They were in Chowchilla, all the way to everywhere, Kalinga, all over the valley. As far as going from Bakersfield to Merced, and finally settled the Fresno County area. That's where my grandparents finally settled down at. But that's still happening today. There's still families that are going from one place to another because they have to follow the work. And a lot of people don't understand how grueling that might be, having to enroll your children to a different school every time, find housing security for yourself, having to make sure that the work you're doing, you're able to do it to the end. And something like a fire that comes in and the smoke and it cuts the season short, or you're
Well,
having
think
issues
about,
like now, like that's something that you don't
yeah,
plan for, and
no.
they still have their life to live, and they still have bills, and that's piling on top of it. And it's still that type of nomadic farming have here in the United States, but people I think overlook a lot. They don't
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
realize
yeah,
what it
yeah.
Well,
takes.
even up north, like in Sonoma, look at how many acres of land was burnt that people worked. And there is actually a couple of organizations that we're hoping just to have like a roundtable discussion with, to understand a little bit more like what the people that they work with closely are expressing to them, right? Are they leaving the area? What are they doing? You know, because the land that they would have normally right now, they probably would be pruning some of them, right? Getting ready for the next season. So what are they doing? That's kind of what we need to figure out. That's lots of work. That's like
Mhm.
not happening anymore. And so where are those people going? Are they going to San Joaquin County? Are they going down to Fresno County? What is that like amongst themselves, trying to find a connection, to find work, right? Because a lot of the times it's like, oh, I know this person, he can get me work for the season, right? But that's usually in areas that like you're a little bit more known, right? But
Mhm.
then you're actually having to travel out, you're having to try to make those connections with other paisanos to like really see if you can get work. Um, but then you think about that kind of travel, and then you think about a pandemic and how that's affecting people too, right? Because now you're traveling, now you're trying to make connections with people, now you're trying to get to know people, and you know you don't know where they've been, right? And it's just it's a really tough situation.
Yeah, you know, we mentioned earlier, like there's so many layers, right? We have
Yeah,
else to do. You go, you know, move around. They're sleeping in the back of a truck. You know, they have
yeah,
like two outfits, one,
yeah,
you know, and this is what they have to wear day in and day out. You know, so it,
yeah.
especially
Like,
during a pandemic, like, and
mhm.
they don't have the cleanliness, they don't have the stability, they don't have somewhere to sleep. You know, but they're sacrificing all of this to be able to get a paycheck to feed their family. You know,
Yeah, to
layers.
send money back home. Some of them, you know, we met these guys who it was like three brothers and they came out together. But literally they only had the clothes that they had on their back.
Mhm.
And I think they were living with another family, you know, but that's why they came together so they can send money back to their family in, I think it's like Chiapas or something like that.
Yeah, we've
And
got
so,
some young kids from Honduras,
yeah, yeah,
and they're like 16, 17, 18-year-old farm
Mhm.
workers.
they're so little, and by themselves.
You know, working the fields out here.
Yeah,
Oh, and I just
yeah,
like a 16-year-old, you know, working 20
yeah,
days in the middle of this pandemic and away from their family. Like, as a 16-year-old, how scary must that be for you? You know, and
right.
and not
But
have
how brave you must be too, right? Like
very
the
brave.
resiliency of it all, and the, you know, it really forges people, right? Like these amazing, strong people, like your grandfather, like our parents, right? Who came out here and, you know, traveled from place to place to try to find work, and the resiliency of it all, just to
Mhm.
see us really grow, grow and prosper.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, the sacrifice was worth it, right? To
Right.
for what
Right,
they had to endure to for
right.
their kids and their grandchildren to see the generation affect and change just by them taking
Yeah.
that leap of faith and coming to the United States, immigrating,
Yeah.
yeah, and making it happen any way possible. And
Right.
my grandfather,
Mhm.
like you talked about those young workers that
Yeah.
he started working when he was like 13, 12 years old, and he had to drop out of school. He was the
Yeah.
oldest of the family, so he was the oldest of his siblings, and he had to. He had no choice. My grandma did the same thing. She wasn't that able to complete high school because her parents pushed her to go work in the fields because she
Yeah.
needed to provide and support the family as well. Back then, it was a family thing, and it's still happening now. Like
Yeah.
everyone has to
Oh,
chip in, or else
yeah.
you're not going to survive. And
Right.
Right.
it's about trying to survive,
Yeah.
and right now a lot of people
There's
don't
that.
they don't look at that, or they don't really consider that much. Everyone now, we get caught up in life and other things, and we don't look back about basic needs. We don't really think about that as much, especially if you've been in California for generations. If you're not an immigrant, you get caught up in the American lifestyle and the idealism of what it means to be an American.
But I think
you don't realize there's so many people that are out there hustling and trying just to survive, to get through not just the pandemic. This is something that they do yearly. This is something that's continuously
for generations, right? And that's the important thing. I feel like that we, as children of immigrants, have an obligation to moving forward, to keep helping our gente, right? Our children have an obligation. Like, our children have an obligation to do what we have, so that their grandparents, their abuelitos, like all their hard work doesn't go in vain, and I think most of us understand that.
So I want to ask, when you did start and when you met up in August, how long were something like this before you end up meeting up? Like, how did that start?
So it's for me. So it started as soon as like the fire started happening, and then just driving around town. So then I started looking on Facebook, and just there are some local groups, and I asked a simple question: hey, is there anybody in the area who helps campesinos? I mean, literally, it was like I think it was in either late July or early August that I posted that, and then I met Maria, who was doing the caravans. I mean, so literally, it happened so fast.
Right, and all of us have like our own individual journeys how we got here. Maria, her abuelito is a campesino, and he one of the farms here out in Brentwood. So she had already been doing this for a few weeks, like where she was the farm workers water and snacks and stuff. But she had started a caravan out here. For me, my husband's a firefighter, and he was deployed to the fires. So I was up one night worried and couldn't sleep, thinking about him being out there, not being able to talk to him, and I was on social media in the middle of the night, and I saw this post, and it was farm workers working with the blazing fires in the back, right? And it's just such a powerful moment for me, because I was experiencing it on a different level, right? Like my husband's, but he has gear, and he has training, and he has all these people with him, and he's trained for this. And I just thought, these people are working, and they don't even have masks. They don't have the proper gear, right? And so that just moved my heart, and I was like, I have to do something. So I just posted on my personal page, like, I'm going to be collecting donations for farm workers if anybody wants to help. And within like a day or two, I had like a ton of donations. That's just from our community. And then I with Maribel and Maria, because I had seen it on the neighborhood post, and so we just kind of linked up in that way.
So who was the one? Go ahead. Sorry.
Amelia, who's the fourth hija. My husband and her husband are childhood friends, and so she kind of started on, joined our journey with us, and she also had a heart to serve in this area. So that's how she also became one of the hijas. So
you said Mariana, she's one of the founders as well?
I'm sorry?
The one of the founders, the one that does the caravan. Can you talk a little bit more about it? So she is one of the founders as well?
Yes, so there's four of us. We're all four co-founders. We all founded the group together. And Maria's grandfather is, he still is working one of the local farms here in Brentwood.
Oh, okay. So that's how it all just intertwined and happened on this way. Okay.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I understand. My best friend, he's a firefighter, and he was out there battling the fires for the past couple of years, and he has all the gear and everything. It's still dangerous. It's very dangerous. It's still toxic on his lungs. It's still toxic when you're out there battling, going out there doing the type of work he does. And I did see that picture too. I've seen several photos of that where you see the people working in the fields, and then behind you see all the smoke, and it's like just no hesitation. You got to get work done. You got to do it.
Yeah.
There was one night we went out and we had donations and we were looking for campesinos. And this was like in the evening time that we started around 3-ish. And we went out looking for campesinos to hand out water and hand out masks. And it was when the smoke was pretty bad. And we had been out for maybe like half an hour, 45 minutes. And I needed to get gas. So we stopped and we were like, what are we going to do? Like, we can't find anybody right now. Like, do we go back or do we keep going? And at that point, we decided we're like, let's try to hit up a couple more places, a couple more roads and see if we find anybody. And we kept driving. And it was like almost out of nowhere. Like, it was like right before the road that we were going to take to go home. And so like by now it's like almost like an hour, right? That we were like doing everything. And then we look over to the right and it was just a field of elote and corn, and people were working back there. And it was just like, because there are different times to pick corn. Either you're like in the morning or or you start in the evening and you work all the way until like midnight or so, right? And so it was just this moment of like, oh my God, like relief. Like we were so happy and so excited. We pulled up, like, I have my little Fit, my little Honda Fit. It's like driving in the dirt. Sometimes I get scared that they're gonna get stuck. Like I'm gonna get stuck.
It's this little car, and like Maribel will fit like, I don't know, like 6, like, and it's a town car. Like it just keeps.
It's like everything. So we're like literally driving in these fields and we get out there and they're so happy to see us. We start unloading agua, like cold water, because this is still like in the super, like it gets really hot out here. It's like 80 degrees.
And that evening that Yvette's talking about, we got there around 7:30 at night and it was 104 degrees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Super hot, and the air quality was terrible.
We have a picture where we're looking out. It was in the horizon towards the sunset, and you can see how bad the smoke was, and everybody was out there working. They're not wearing N95s, you know what I mean? Like, if anything, pañuelos, like bandanas over their mouth, but that's it, right?
Yeah, they had t-shirts.
It's not like it's like, it's not covering them, right? And so that's what they're working in. So like what you're saying about your grandpa, the long-term effects and everything, like, can you imagine what this is going to mean to them, down the road, like that's just crazy to me.
It was also very powerful that day when we went out because it was so hot and they had been working who knows since when. And we had like a huge ice chest with cold waters, and we had other stuff for them. We had snacks and granola.
We had backpacks for their kids.
We had supplies, but they were like, oh, do you have water? Do you have water? Like they were asking us, do you have water? And this huge ice chest of water like diminished within like 30
like 2.
These people were thirsty. It was like it broke my heart, to be honest, to like how thirsty they were, and they were still working. And I remember leaving there thinking, had we not come, who knows when they would have had a water break,
Yeah.
And it's like little things like that we take for granted, like most of us work, like we're thirsty, we get up and go get a cup of water or go make ourselves a coffee and chit chat in the coffee room, right? Like, but these people are just like working, like it. I mean, it feels like they're slaves.
And they're not getting compensated that much either. Nope. They're barely making enough, and it's grueling work, and that it's very low paying type of that they're providing.
It was crazy. There was a señor, and actually I'm thinking about your grandpa too, who's 76. There was a señor that was out there, right? Because they have this big machine that's like bringing the corn in, right? There's like the people in the front, like I don't know how it picks it, and then there's like where they sit, where the people stand up top and they're like shucking the corn, and then there's the guys in the back, and it's like a row of guys in the back, and they're like cutting everything down that they go through, right? And there was like a señor, like están bien, like they're really older, like they're older gentlemen who I'm like thinking of your grandpa, like 76 years old, and they're out there on their feet, like walking, all of these acres, in one night, right? So
And that's grueling work. Some of the most grueling work I've ever seen is when they pick lettuce. Like picking lettuce, you have to be on your knees all day, and you're walking on all fours, and people don't realize
tomatoes.
like, or tomatoes, strawberries.
We saw people
That's tough.
tomatoes, and that was, I mean, they're literally in the mud on their knees picking.
Mm-hmm.
Cold mud. You know, it's cold.
And so you're saying it's 104 degrees out there. This is back when the smoke and fire is really bad, and they have like a bandana on their face, and they're not having masks. No. Now that you provided the mask, do you see them wearing them? Are they utilizing this mask?
Yeah.
Is something?
Yeah. Yes. It's cool. Like we've gone out to, deliver food for people, and they come out of their house and they're wearing the masks that we gave.
Yeah.
Their heart's so happy to know like that they have masks and they're wearing them. And same at work. The times we've gone back, we've seen people wearing like the sun hats we've given them.
Yeah.
Masks, or like, right now it's cold. So when we go see campesinos, they're wearing the jackets we've gotten them, and even the food, the feedback we've gotten, it's not like it's a bag of food and they're throwing it in the trash. Like this, that is very useful to them. And so that, that makes us happy that it's not just going in the garbage. Like this is filling a need.
Yeah. So they're doing the best you can for that. How many individuals or families do you think you provided for or helped during the time, during these last 4 or 5 months?
Oh my God, how many families? We have a breakdown. Well, just alone with the people that we know that worked at this farm, right? So it's 700 people, right? With just one farm. But we've helped multiple farms in the area. I mean, it's got to be like, I feel like 1,000 people,
And to these 1,000 people, what's the cost for this? How much does it take to provide for 1,000 family or 1,000 people?
Well, Amelia's our money person. So we just honestly, you think about it, right? I don't know, it's expensive. Like a bolsita de frijol, like a bag of frijol, rice, fideo, the Knorr little squares, we like to put that in there too because we need some flavor, in our food. Frijoles. So like just basically like per person, it's got to be like $50-$75, right? Because we want to make sure that we're also supplying like good things for them that they're gonna enjoy eating, right? Like if we have the opportunity to get things that are gonna be, we want to make sure it's not just like the 99-cent store, right? Like we want to make sure that we're getting them good things.
And also we don't do like all at the same time, right? So we pick like, areas of town or different farms, and then we kind of focus on that. So like this week we're going to provide for 40 farm workers and their families, or next week we're doing 10, or this week we're going to do 60. For Thanksgiving, that was kind of like our biggest, where we were able to provide for a lot of people at the same time. And we did close to 500 meals, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So, so that's kind of how we break it up. Jackets too, we've kind of been doing it in, different segments, like where we'll donate to a certain farm, or a certain family, and we kind of, as we get them, we hand them out. So,
yeah.
And so it is costly to provide for people. And so that's where organizing and fundraising and trying to get community partners in to help provide for these individuals that are in need. So what are some things that you've been doing as far as getting community partners, as far as organizing, as far as fundraising?
So it's been interesting because we've had people reach out to us because we are still grassroots. We're not an official nonprofit. So there have been opportunities missed, but within that, we've also met some amazing organizations. We've actually met, her name is Heidi Kuhn, and she started this organization called Roots of Peace. And I met her through an old friend, Cassandra. It's her mother-in-law. And she actually goes to war-torn countries, and like Afghanistan, and she will take her organization, and they will teach people how to basically farm the land. And this is after they take out like landmines and bombs. Like they will go in, take these things out of the land, make it safe for them, and then teach people how to farm, right? So it's just like amazing. She's been a huge support of us just this past month. And so that's kind of helping us this month, with the build program that we have. So we're using some of those funds for that. We have also partnered up with a friend of mine, Jasmine Gonzalez, and her husband, Elliot. And so they are going to be working with artists from all over the world. The first series is by an artist named Victor Reyes. And so he's done a limited run print, and it's these amazing prints. And so part of the proceeds are going to go to us, right? And so that's some of what we've done, but also Dorina, yeah.
We're very fortunate that people have been very generous and have been supporting. Yeah. It's just, to be honest, it's just been the generosity of others and the generosity of other organizations who like what we're doing and are supporting us. Like, we're not funded. We're not an official organization. We're working to file our nonprofit soon. None of the Hijas get paid. We use our own money for gas and our own time, and we're not making any money of it. All the donations we get, 100% of it goes to the campesinos. We don't even use that for like our own. We pay for our own. They pay for our own gas. All of it has 100% been the generosity of others.
So where can people donate? Where can people buy the art? How can people get involved?
Yeah, so the art, that's going to launch tomorrow, which we are super excited about. And it's called Altruism is the name of their organization. And so that's going to be launching tomorrow, Monday at 4 p.m. So we're really excited about that. But we do also have a Venmo. So Venmo is Hijas del Campo. And you can find the little barcode thing. What is it called? I don't know. You can find that on our Instagram or our Facebook. And then we do also have an Amazon, but a lot of people don't like Amazon. So we do partner with like little mercados here in Oakley and things like that. So you could always call them, place an order with them, and then we can come and pick it up. So.
Yeah, or message us and we get back to you on how you could help too. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic and everything, we can't really have volunteers. And even as we're working individually now, where before we would meet up and head out together, now we're kind of doing it on our own, just for safety reasons and trying to be respectful of everything that's going on and keep everyone safe and healthy.
Okay, and I appreciate.
I did also want to mention Miguel with Al Pastor Papi. He has been huge, like so amazing. We were going to have an event called Pozole for the People, and he is donating his food. He's making pozole, and so we are going to still partner with him, but of course, like being respectful in how we're going to do that for Christmas. But he has been huge, just connecting people to us for donations and things like that, and connecting us with other organizations in like Sonoma and other counties in California. So huge thank you to him.
That's how I found out about your organization is through Al Pastor Papi. I was seeing on I saw it on his page, and I started going through it, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I was excited for was it December 20th? He's doing
next weekend
for the people. Next weekend, okay. So next weekend he's doing Pozole for the People. I'm excited for that coming up.
We've had to revise that event sometimes because things keep changing. So we're going to do our best to bring people pozole, but it's going to be in a whole different way that we imagined it to be. But we're also doing Christmas gifts for their kids and blankets and so. But that's also another way to. Example is to share on your own platforms and just keep spreading the word, and that's also a great way to support us.
Okay, so we're getting towards the end of the episode now. I do want to, before we end it, I do want to ask a couple more things. One being, You could donate through your Venmo. You could buy the art. You could get in touch with local community members such as Apastor Papi. Are you doing a toy drive? And is that something in the works?
We're not specifically doing a drive. We have organizations that are donating toys, as well as other individuals who have reached out to us and specifically said, "I want to, adopt a family." So we're doing that. And kids, we've had we've allocated funds for that to buy blankets for the families that we're going to be servicing for Christmas. But they're always needed. If somebody wants to donate, we will get it to somebody.
So if someone wants to donate, where can I reach out to?
Hijas del Campo on our Instagram or Facebook. You can send us a message, and we will respond to you and get connected.
So what are the 5 things that are needed the most that you recommend people if they do donate?
Food. Food. Warm clothes. If people want to donate new warm clothes, we're always open for that. Oh my gosh. School supplies, because we know our kids go through them super fast and their kids do too. So definitely school supplies. ¿Y qué más? Toiletries. So like toothpaste, shampoo, things that you use on a daily basis like that. Soap, jabón, body soap, body wash, things like that.
Okay. So, Dorina, before I end, and Merva, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your wonderful ideas and what you've been doing and how many people you're helping and the impact you're having on those individuals' lives. It's something that it's beyond, how thankful, those individuals are for you to be there for them, especially when they're the most vulnerable of our population right now, and they're not getting notices, getting any help. And it takes organizations and it takes people like you two and all 4 of you women that are giving your time, your money, and your energy in this. And no one asked you to do it. You did it on your own. And that's something that is very admirable. When someone listens to this podcast, whether audio or they see it on YouTube or Instagram, Facebook, what do you want them to think about Hijas del Campo? Like, what do you want them to think about you? What should be their impression or their view or their idea of you?
Wow,
that's a really good question. God, I just think how important it is, whether it's 1 or 100 people, how important your impact on one person's life can be. I think if anything, when people look at us, I feel like knowing your power.
Yeah.
Because we did it. You can do it too. So.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to know, like, we all have the ability to, make a difference. And also I want people to know that it takes a village, and that's been the beauty in all of this for me. I know for the girls too, is just seeing people come together to help, So for me, I would just want people to know that Hijas del Campo is just a vessel, and we're just doing our best to reach people and bring people like a little bit of light and hope. And that's just what we're set out to do.
Okay. Yeah. I appreciate it. Like I said, one last time, thank you. You can find you on Instagram and on Facebook.